sexually abusive dolphins. Yeah, I'm aware. I'm familiar with Tyreek Hill. I want you to know that it was so funny when I first saw it. I laughed so hard that instead of sending the tweet, I refreshed my timeline. And because I'm on the For You page and Elon Musk sucks donkey ass, the tweet disappeared. And I literally, to no one, yelled, "God damn you, Elon Musk."
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Ride the Pine. It is our 52nd episode. I am Sean Sproat. That is Adam Freeman and Kenny Hutton. Today is the second part of our NFL preview special. Specifically, today is the NFC. Of course, last week, you listened last week, I would assume, was AFC. So before we get into NFC, Kenny, you had a new name for our opening intro segment. Do you remember what you had for that name?
This is the pregame tailgate.
Pre-gaming. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Start us off for the pregame tailgate.
Yeah. So what was it, Sean? The question is going to be the best thing you saw.
Best thing you
this
saw
week or last week.
Yep, in between the last time to now.
And I haven't seen what I truly want to see, but college football has officially kicked off, and we've already got a top 10 upset. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Florida State travels 3,000 miles to the beautiful city of Dublin. I think it was Dublin. And lets Georgia Tech beat them on a field goal. You love to see it.
It wasn't just a field goal, though. Let's be honest. Florida State did not even belong in that game. Georgia Tech played very, very well, and somehow Florida State was able to stay in that because they could not stop Georgia Tech's offense.
I don't mean to diminish Georgia Tech as much as I mean to diminish Florida State. I definitely think Georgia Tech is a little underrated. Now, I'm not going to sit here and do the Andy Staples thing because that guy is a fucking idiot. Sidebar, you started your career because you walked on to the Florida team in 96 and you started your career at SI, and then you stepped down to ESPN, and then you stepped down to something else, and now you're at On 3, which tells me nobody wants to talk to you anymore. Andy Staples put them in his top 4 because he thinks they're going to win the ACC now. Just stupid. The ACC is a dumpster fire extraordinaire. I think any of us who are aware of what college football actually is, we knew this going into it, right? We're not sure what we're getting out of Clemson. We're going to find out Saturday because Clemson takes on Georgia, and it's going to tell us, is Clemson back or is Debo, still too scared of NIL? I think we know the answer to this. And Miami, when's the last time Miami's been relevant?
Been a while.
Great stumping question, because the last time they were relevant, the 7th Floor boys were in Miami writing raps, posting them to YouTube. And for fun facts, Greg Olson was a 7th Floor boy. That's how long it's been since Miami's been relevant.
Willis McGahee snapping his knee.
I think that's the same era. That's that early 2000s.
Yeah. Adam, what best thing you saw this week?
I would tag right in on Kenny's. We had our first official Ride the Pine fraud alert issued for Florida State. For those of you that don't know about our fraud alerts, it's relatively new, but it's going to be a warning and a watch system, and I explained it on Twitter. It's like tacos. A watch for a fraud is, you know what? We could probably make tacos. We got the ingredients. There are no tacos. A warning means we've got some freaking tacos. It's time to eat tacos.
Nobody State, outside the Midwest gets that reference.
No, they don't. Florida State is officially on watch. I think there is a very good possibility that they are a fraud. I don't think that they're a good team. I don't think they are what they were top 10, 11 team, whatever. I don't see that happening at all after the other night or other morning, afternoon, whatever. I would put them on there. Like I said, football's back, and we have a massive upset in week 1. Mine, though, goes to the baseball world. I don't know if I want to call it ability, but the happenings between the Blue Jays and the Red Sox, and having Danny Jansen become the first player in MLB history to play for, I'm going to make sure I get it right, I think it's the Blue Jays. The game gets rained out in the middle of his at bat. It's played 3 months later or 2 months later, whatever it is, and he gets traded to the Red Sox in the middle of that. And now he plays in the game as the Red Sox catcher. He comes into that game. He's the first person to play in 2 MLB games for 2 different teams, or 1 MLB game for 2 different teams. I think that's pretty cool. That's something you'll never see again, for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm surprised that's never happened before with the amount of like in-season trades that happen in baseball, and you see guys who like get traded and they are told in the dugout and they're told to leave. That's a surprise that that's never happened, but that is pretty cool. Mine is simply best of the week is our new Substack. The fact that we are officially quote unquote published writers. We have multiple articles on the Substack. We'll put the link in the show description, but there's multiple articles on MLS with Leagues Cup and just kind of like an overall ranking. And then Adam, you have one called Captain My Captain, which I believe is like the captain for the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, Keegan Bradley being named captain, I think it was about 2 months ago. Everybody questioned it. I mean, legitimately, the entire golf world was thinking it was going to be Eldrick Tiger Woods. He pretty much passed on it because of his stuff. They named Keegan Bradley. Everybody knows, in the golf world at least, the story behind Netflix and Full Swing and Keegan Bradley last year with the Ryder Cup, and he's proven that he's probably going to be a great captain for us. That's for sure.
Yeah, so we'll have articles up there, not just limited to soccer and golf, but we'll have a bunch of different stuff up there. Kenny, you have one in the works as well. So check it out. It's on the Substack. Like I said, link it in the show description. We'll have something flash up on the screen with the link or something. And yeah, really looking forward to writing a little bit more. So should we dive into the NFC? We're only, 7 days away?
Yeah.
7-8 days away from the start of the season. So we discussed AFC, NFC. Who are the favorites? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. For me, I think the team that is the favorite is probably not going to shock anybody. Well, maybe it will. I think it's the Lions. I really do. I think that their offense is good. It's really good. Their defense is much improved from this year. They have a tough NFC North. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's them. I think all the shit with the Cowboys, they're still the 4th best team in the NFC. I do like the Eagles in the NFC East. The South, my God, no, thank you. And then out west, the Niners are their only competition. I think that with Brandon Ayuk, whether he really wants to play for the Niners or not, this is the last ride for that team. They're going to have to pay Purdy after this. I think it's the Lions this year.
I for one, am actually shocked that you said that, because the answer is the 49ers. They are the clear favorite. They are in not necessarily the weakest division because it is the South, but I believe the West is probably the 2nd weakest division, which means they're going to beat up on other West teams. And the likelihood that they have home field advantage throughout the playoffs will be huge to them. And we can't, forget the fact that they have Christian McCaffrey, who, until proven otherwise, is the best non-quarterback offensive player in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, you can argue Tyreek Hill, you can argue somebody else, but it's Christian McCaffrey.
I don't have anything to argue that. Those were actually the 2 that I was going to highlight. 49ers 1, Lions 2. Shout out to Eagles because I have to. I'm contractually obligated to do that. But it is the 49ers is just head and shoulders above everybody else for me for those exact reasons. Cool. Next up, who will finish in the basement? Who's going to be terrible?
I think this is why the NFC for this review probably isn't as fun, because I'm going to guess all 3 of us are going to say the same team, and we're all going to say the Carolina Panthers. What's the projection? Like 5.5 wins? like by far, clearly the worst team in the NFC.
See, I'm going different. I think it's the Giants. I think that the Giants are going to be a dumpster fire of a team. I think that Daniel Jones is benched for Drew Lock by week 7. God, I hope so, right? Represent MIZ. I think that I just that team to me screams dumpster fire. And then there's another one, and that's going to be the Vikings. I think the Vikings are in the and the only reason I would say that is because of them playing in the NFC North. And now they definitely don't have a quarterback because they're going to Sam Darnold. We don't know how that goes. Their only hope is that they have Justin Jefferson they can throw the ball up to. But the Panthers are going to be there. Their saving grace is going to be the NFC South. They're going to be able to compete with the Saints. They're going to be able to compete probably to an extent with the Buccaneers and Falcons. If they can win 2 against the Saints, if they can split against Atlanta and Tampa Bay, there's 4 wins. I think that it's more doable. It's more likely that the Giants go 0-6 in the division than it is for the Panthers to go 0-6 in the division.
So if you remember last week, we referenced that athletic article by Austin Mock. He has one for the NFC as well. And the Carolina Panthers are last at 5 projected wins. You have the New York Giants at 5.4. And then up next, you have the one that I wanted to highlight, which is actually the Arizona Cardinals at 6.7, because I actually think they have arguably the hardest schedule. I know we just talked about the division and the NFC West and everything. Listen to the first few games of their season. They open up on the road in Buffalo, San Francisco, and Green Bay.
Oh my God.
That's not great. That's a tone setter for the season. So give me Arizona Cardinals to finish in last. But yeah, those are all great shout outs. Those are right at the end.
Well,
right at the bottom.
Let me ask Sean, what is the win projection of the Vikings? And has that number were those numbers released before what they had JJ McCarthy and Addison go out with season-ending injuries?
Yes, this is before all of that. So before those injuries, they are, I'll tell you right here. So we said really quickly, we said Panthers were in last, Giants next with 5.4, Cardinals with 6.7. Then you have the Washington Commanders at 7.2. And then the Minnesota Vikings tied at 7.2, but they get a slight bump.
So you're talking about potentially putting them in that realm of that 5.5 to 6 range. So I mean, you're still talking about the Panthers being statistically likely the worst team in the conference.
Well, how much do you value those injuries? Is basically what we're talking about. Does it equate to more than 2.4 wins for you? If that hurts them more than 2.4 wins, then we're talking about the Vikings finishing in last place in the NFC.
I mean, I wasn't sold on JJ McCarthy anyway, but an NFL franchise was, and receivers and running backs, and yes, a player like Justin Jefferson is huge. A Jamar Chase would be huge. Tyreek Hill, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a Jordan Addison is probably a dime a dozen. And that's not to, undersell what he is to the Vikings potentially, but they could probably go out and find somebody replaceable. I'm thinking more of those loss of wins just based on the quarterback position alone.
Yeah.
Which is the most important position in football.
Arguably in sports. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The NFC feels it's a little bit of a log jam in the middle. But you have the top ones that we just talked about. And then from there's probably 8-9 teams that you could probably interchange. It's pretty difficult to decide because this could be a year where the Seattle Seahawks could regress and we could see them near the bottom again.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to pinpoint. And then to kind of lead into our next discussion, who's the surprise team?
Would it be a surprise to say the Eagles?
No, not to me, because we're using this like projection model pretty heavily over the last 2 weeks. They're second in the NFC at 11.1 wins.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that they're a surprise to like. They're not going to surprise me to win the NFC East, but I think Saquon Barkley, and we'll get to this here in a minute. To me, Saquon is a massive addition to that offense. So I think if they're able to really run the football effectively, and I know they had DeAndre Swift last year. He was 1,000-yard back, good, solid back. And then you had, Jalen Hurts. I think he was at like 600, 700 yards rushing. So if you can get that, but now if you can get Saquon in that 1,100, 1,200 yards, and it opens up Hurts a little bit more passing and running, that offense is going to be lethal.
Well, the whole point of getting Barkley is that you don't have to rely on Hurts to use his legs as much. He should open up the passing game more, and then Hurts can stay not necessarily in the pocket, but at least behind the line of scrimmage, and you don't have to risk him as much as they did last year.
Right. His rushing becomes more effective than scrambling for his life.
Right.
So that 600 yards he could still run for 600 yards, but if Saquon is able to run for 1,200 and Hurts is able to throw for, I mean, at that math, let's call it 3,000, 3,500 basic, or maybe even closer to 4, because I guess you're probably looking at like 5.5 to 6,000 yards total offense these days.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. If you're in 5,500 between those three, or even 5,000 between those three combos, that offense is going to be good. The defense is still pretty solid. I think if you're really going to call for a shock, it's going to be Atlanta.
Really quickly, the main reason why I wouldn't call the Philadelphia Eagles a surprise is because we just talked about the Detroit Lions and being one of the favorites. The betting line right now for both of those teams to win more than 10.5 games, the Eagles actually have a little bit of a better betting line by about 5 points. So I don't know if I would call them surprise, but Atlanta, I like that shout out.
Yeah, Atlanta is a true shock for me. I think they win the South. I think they're going to have a much better year. Now, that could all change if they decide to put Michael Penix in versus Cousins. I think Cousins is the answer to start, but if they decide to make a change for whatever reason and go straight into Michael Penix, I think that changes everything for that team. That makes them very questionable on what they can do.
If Michael Penix sees the field, it is worst case scenario for the Atlanta Falcons.
They're talking as if he may actually play legit games, like not because of Kirk not succeeding, but just because they drafted him in the first round, which to me still blows me away that they go out and they spend the money they did on Cousins and then draft him. And it basically crosses over as far as the contract from Cousins and the first 4 years for sure of Penix. So, and they owe so much money over the first 2 years. Like, it's highly questionable, but he is Cousins will be the reason that team succeeds. They're not going to do shit in the playoffs because of Cousins, but they will be a 9-win team, and that's going to win the South.
Yeah. If you're the GM of the Falcons, it is a lose-lose situation, because if you went and you drafted Penix whenever you did, you paid Cousins as much money as you did. So if Penix never sees the field, then you look terrible for drafting Penix in the first round. And if he does see the field, then you're terrible because you're not winning games, because your number one quarterback who you paid all that money is not getting it done for you, or he goes out and gets injured. That's a lose-lose situation for them. Kenny, who's your surprise?
My surprise would be the Chicago Bears.
The Bears. The Bears.
I don't think they're again, kind of like my Raiders pick from last week. I don't think they're necessarily going to surprise anybody by their win total. But when you draft a player with the potential like Caleb Williams, you have to surround them with weapons. Look at what has happened with CJ Stroud and with Bryce Young. I'm not going to sit here and say Bryce Young is a failed quarterback yet, right? Because to me, Bryce Young hasn't failed the Panthers. The Panthers have failed Bryce Young. So the Bears have went out and done the complete opposite of that. They went and got this kid some weapons. So hold on, my phone just went blank. They did get DeAndre Swift. Again, I don't want to call him a middling back, but what do we say? About 750 yards. Cool.
Good 2 down back.
Yeah. DJ Moore, legit number 1 wide receiver. Okay. You've already got Cole Kmet. Oh, and then you go out and you trade for arguably one of the best receivers of the last decade in Keenan Allen. You got this kid exactly what he needs.
Don't forget about Xavier Legette, too, out of South Carolina. That dude's a monster.
Yeah, sorry. The way the NFL does, so I clicked on the depth chart. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed this. They have like first string, second string, and like you got to scroll, and I don't really like that. Just give it to me straight. Again, I don't think the Bears are going to win anybody over necessarily with their record. They're not going to compete in the North, but they're going to be a lot better than they were last year. That's for damn sure. And again, that's why I think it qualifies as a surprise. I think Caleb Williams, watching a couple of the throws he's made in preseason, yes, granted, preseason, he's going to make a lot of people eat words.
It is the Bears, though. It's difficult.
We're not going to win unless we have Rex Grossman again. Like Rex Grossman took the Bears to the Super Bowl.
That's true. That's true.
Who would win, Mini Ditka or Hurricane named Ditka?
Oh, Mini Ditka is going to get all up in there and definitely win.
Got him by field goal.
Coach Ditka or God? Trick question. Coach Ditka is God. Their schedule. So they open up against the Tennessee Titans. Then they go to Houston. They at Indianapolis. They have the Rams at home, the Panthers at home, the Jaguars at home. It's pretty doable. At Washington, at Arizona, then New England at home. They don't really play a tough schedule until the second half.
Hold on, go back through that again just one more time.
So they open up 1 second. I'm sorry. Home against the Titans.
W.
Go to Houston.
Okay, then in Houston, second.
Lose.
Okay, at Indianapolis.
Lose.
Okay, home against LA.
Win.
Rams. Then home against Carolina.
Win.
Home against the Jaguars.
Win.
Bye week, and then at Washington Commanders.
Win.
Lose. Oh, okay. So at Arizona Cardinals.
Win.
Home against the Patriots.
Win.
And then you open up division play. So then you have the Packers at home.
Loss.
Vikings at home.
Win.
In Detroit.
Loss.
At San Francisco.
Loss.
At Minnesota.
Win.
Detroit at home.
Loss.
Wait, hold on. Time out. What time of the year is that?
That is end of December, 12/22.
Oh, it's end of December? That's a win.
Okay. and then you have a Thursday night game at home against Seattle.
Win.
And then finally they wrap it up in Green Bay.
Loss.
Ooh.
Were you keeping track of how many wins and losses that was?
No, but it felt like
I think we were at 8 wins. I think is what we got there.
Which is pretty much exactly where their betting line is right now, by the way.
Which is a good, like, I think a lot of people tend to talk down on the Bears because they drafted number 1, not remembering that the only reason that they drafted number 1 is because they traded with Carolina so Carolina could get Bryce Young, and they got their number 1 this year, which just so happened to turn into the number 1 draft pick because Carolina was terrible last year. They were an 8-8 team last year. So now you add a team, you're going to add in all the weapons around what is now Caleb Williams. It makes sense. They're not going to regress, and that defense is pretty good. So 8 wins, 8-10. I mean, a couple of those games are maybe even more coin flips than anything. But I mean, 8-10 wins is probably pretty legit. My Marcus Robinson jersey will probably come out of the coffers at that one.
Look, here's what I'll say is last year when we did this exercise with Mizzou, I believe I had picked 10-2 and I got guilt shamed into picking a third loss. So I stand by my Chicago Bears picks this year.
We'll have to go back and actually go back and post and see what we actually said. We should have been writing that down. But their line right now is 8.5. Oh no, excuse me. 8.5 under 9 is plus 100. They have a make playoffs at minus 120.
Not good money.
Not great money. No.
Doesn't entice me to put money on it, is what I should say.
Yeah, for sure. Any other surprises?
Negative.
Okay.
What about, I'm going to throw this one out that'll probably tickle your fancy a little bit, Sean. What about the Cowboys in the negative sense?
I mean, that sounds incredible.
It's shaping up that way.
Right now, this projection has them just about 9 wins, but their under 10.5 line is -125. Make playoffs -200.
Yeah.
That feels about right.
I don't know. I feel like I said it in our group text. I don't think if they re-sign Dak, I would be shocked. They just re-signed CeeDee Lamb. He's the second highest paid wide receiver. I think that probably, to me, signifies more that they're okay letting Dak leave. They're okay letting McCarthy leave because the Sanders boys are going to be running that team come 2025. I mean, think about it, though. How many franchises, and I know Dallas is completely different because of the level of absolute lunacy that is Jerry Jones. But how many teams truly let their star quarterback or star player go to the final year of their contract without starting the year with a contract? How many teams truly let their coach go to the final year of their contract? I mean, even the Cardinals, for whatever reason, baseball Cardinals, decided that we're going to extend Ali Marmol 2 years just so that he doesn't have the last year of his contract. Teams do that all the time. We'll throw away the extension. It is what it is. But he's letting McCarthy go, just run it out. If I'm McCarthy, one, I don't give an F what I'm doing because I'm going to go find a new place to play, a new place to coach next year anyways. And if I'm Dak, I'm not signing because you know what? I'm going to go to free agency. I'm going to get $60+ million a year in free agency.
So is your conspiracy theory that Sanders graduates, goes into the draft, the Cowboys move up, draft him, and then hire Dion as well?
Yeah. If that was a betting line,
would be, as an Eagles fan, I freaking love that. Please,
as a betting
God,
line, I would put money on.
That is the most Cowboy thing ever.
But we have to remember that is the team that the owner of the company had to basically be gagged, which he probably enjoyed it, to not draft Johnny Manziel. They would have had Johnny Manziel in the first round. I get it. I understand that. I don't even remember what the quote is that I saw yesterday that came from Jerry Jones about how he's the only one that can run the Cowboys and he makes the final decisions on all the contracts and nobody else could do what he does and it's all on him. That man is a lunatic. Of course he's planning something down the road, and that is going to be to put Deion Sanders on the headset.
Oh, man.
It's going to be to have Shedeur be his quarterback. What?
I didn't even think about that.
And here's the thing. They may not even have to trade up to even do that.
No,
so
they won't.
They have this 6-game stretch that starts kind of like early, mid-ish October. They play. I'm not going to go through the whole schedule or anything because, frankly, it's Dallas. I don't really actually give a shit. But this 6-game stretch is at Pittsburgh, home Detroit, at San Francisco, Atlanta, Philly, Houston.
You could conceivably see where they lose.
Yeah.
Not knowing their quarterback situation, and I mean, if Dak's even going to play, but you can conceivably see where they lose all 5 of those 6 games.
So the line for them to make the playoffs, I mean, it's -200. I don't see them going to the playoffs. That still means
they're a favorite to make the playoffs.
Correct. And I don't see playoffs for Dallas this year.
So what is it to not make the playoffs?
I don't have that in front of me.
Damn. Stupid Missouri betting laws, I'd be able to tell you.
I mean, they're plus 130 to win the division.
There's too much alignment. And again, the one thing that sets it off for me is that they signed CD Lamb before they signed their quarterback. Why would you do that? Why on earth would you do that and tell your quarterback that he's not as important as your wide receiver?
I thought Dak was going to get traded in the offseason. I didn't even think he'd be a Cowboy to start the year.
Yeah, it makes too much sense for me right now. So that's my conspiracy theory.
Any other disappointing shout-outs?
Disappointed that I didn't think of that myself.
Yeah, clip that, Sean. We're going to post that.
Yep.
Were we on surprise or were we on disappointing?
I think we said who was going to regress the most. I thought we had John, but maybe we didn't.
Oh, well, okay. I think I think the biggest disappointment is the Eagles.
Okay. Okay. Kind of saw that coming, to be honest with you.
I mean, look, my thing with the Eagles is not actually anything with the team itself. Yes, my doppelganger is gone and they won't be able to do the tush push anymore, really. But I'm not sold on Nick Sirianni. I really, truly am not. He has seemed to fumble it at every step imaginable. And eventually, when you build this house of cards, it has to come tumbling down. And I just think this is the year that you can see it tumbling down. I can conceivably see a year where the Eagles make the playoffs, get absolutely destroyed, and Sirianni loses his job.
I could see that too. My only, I guess, rebuttal to that is that they got better at every position of need besides center. They did not, obviously they didn't get better at center, but they completely retooled their secondary, which was the worst part of that football team last year. They're better than they were last year on paper.
We'll see. Yeah.
So if that happens after they went out and they spent all this money in this offseason, then yeah, I could see him losing his job. Adam? Agree? Disagree? Throw any other ones out there?
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the Eagles. I would say my number one would be the most disappointing would be the Cowboys, because on paper they do have a decent team, but the mentality of that team is absolutely going to be in shambles and it's going to get destroyed. I think, man, the NFC is tough because, and Sean, you said it a little bit ago, there are so many teams that are mid-level teams. Mm-hmm. You have 4 teams that are probably going to win divisions, and they're going to have double-digit wins. Conceivably, I can see everybody else going 9-7.
Honestly, sorry, Adam, I didn't mean to mow your lawn like that. But honestly, I look at the NFC like kind of how I'm looking at the SEC this year. Like, you're going to have a champion, and then you're going to have Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, and then you're going to have everybody else in between. And it's really going to be dictated whether they had a good year based on where that team thinks they should fall, right? Like, you could have a Kentucky that, goes 7-5 and goes, you know what, we're Kentucky, we're playing football, it's good. Where you have a Commanders team that would go, what would that essentially be like, doing 8-8 and going, this is a great improvement, this is fantastic for us. I think you could see a lot of that. Like, for example, the Rams are one of my wild card teams that I had selected, but I can conceivably see the Rams losing, missing the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And that could be a huge blow to the Rams fan base in LA, who might think, yes, we're a playoff team. So it's such a crapshoot.
Okay, I'm going to go with another team in that division. I'm going to say the Seattle Seahawks. I think that they regress. I think last year they drastically overperformed. This year they're pretty young on both sides of the line, on the offensive and defensive line. They have a new head coach. They gave up a massive amount of rushing yards and rushing first downs last year, and I think that's just only going to get worse. I think they finish either third in the NFC West, or if for somehow the Arizona Cardinals actually put a string together and win some games, I think they could finish last as well. They're going to be right there with the Cardinals.
Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah. Best offseason acquisition. Adam, you mentioned Saquon Barkley earlier. Are you going to ride with that, or you got any other ones?
I mean, really, it's probably a tie between Saquon, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. I mean, I think those three are going to make both of those teams, the Eagles and the Bears, massively different franchises.
To be fair,
fair,
DJ Moore played for the Bears last year as well.
He did, yes.
Well, yeah, that's true, I guess. Okay, Keenan Allen. Let's go there. But yeah, those two, I think that they make those offenses completely different, in my opinion.
So obviously I mentioned Keenan Allen before, so he's clearly on this list. I had two jokes. I wrote down Drew Lock, and I wrote down Jake Elliott.
It might be. It definitely could happen.
It
will happen.
And then I kind of picked two off the wall. Chase Young was signed by New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a division like the South, having a stout defensive line could win you some football games. Chase Young is a proven talent, obviously drafted second overall out of Ohio State. Ohio State, is a blue blood powerhouse, and he is a good football player. So again, kind of off the wall. And then my last one that I just kind of thought of was actually the Lions being able to re-sign their offensive coordinator, Ben Jansen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's not acquisition in how we would normally view that, but that guy was the most sought after coordinator in all of football. And he stayed with the Lions. So while I don't know if the Lions are necessarily ready to dethrone the 49ers, he gives them their best chance to do so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
I really didn't have any other ones. I was going to throw out an Eagle. I was going to throw out Devin White, the linebacker. But that's it. I'm totally on board with the rest of those as well. Yeah. Cool.
You know what? Circling back to best thing of the week, we all forgot to mention one thing. Ted Lasso.
Man, that should have been. Dang it.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Which I don't know how I feel about that. Can we talk about that for a second?
I'm in the same boat. It ended really well.
It did.
And apparently Sudeikis isn't signed on 100% yet. So how can you have Ted Lasso without Ted Lasso?
I don't know. You have, I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but you have some other side characters who kind of took over after a certain thing happened, and you run with them. It's just not the same show, though.
Right. You have to change the name of it. It's no longer Ted Lasso. It has to become AFC or whatever, something random.
Listen, right now, because Phil Dunster is not going to be apparently on the show. For those of you who don't know who we're talking about Jamie Tart. Jamie Tart. You could give me 40, 50-minute episodes of Coach Beard and Roy Kent. Just being the Diamond Dogs, and
I would love that spinoff.
I would be okay with it. Like, if Brendan Hunt is involved in the project, I think I would watch it, even if Sudeikis is not, because I do really like that character. And
and the episodes that Brendan produced or wrote, whichever way you want to do it, were fantastic.
Yeah. You know what I think I need instead of a season 4? I think I need like a YouTube series or like little 15-minute episodes of just the Diamond Dogs taking real questions from like viewers, and they answer them in character.
That would be fantastic.
I think that's what I need.
That would be we need to find a way to petition that. That would be absolutely awesome.
That would be incredible. It's just like, hi, we have a caller on line 1, and it's Roy Kent. Like, yeah, sign me up.
I forget the interview or when the interview came out. What is the actor that plays Roy Kent's name?
Is it Brett or Brent?
Brett Goldstein.
Yeah,
Brett. He's like, when I read the script for the first time, I didn't realize how many times I was going to drop the F-bomb. And that's not how I talk. And I'm like, that is fantastic. That is not your character.
He wrote it.
Different. And he wrote it. And that was what he went with. Yeah, that is fantastic news.
Yeah. What are we doing next week? Next week we're going to be recording right before the NFL season starts. So do you want to do like save our picks for like Super Bowl and playoffs and everything? Do you want to save that for next week?
Yeah, we'll do that next week.
Okay.
We can report on the JDL if we wanted to.
We could do that. Man. Yeah. Maybe by next week, Kenny will have an article out on our Substack.
I doubt it.
I'm hoping Friday.
Okay. What are you going to write about? Do you want to give a little tease?
Kenny, write about it in the car on the way back from the Mizzou game tomorrow.
Well, it might be about Mizzou, so we'll see.
I like it. All right.
Hold on. So I have two things. We did this last year. We're going to do this again this year. We'll start with the easy one first. Over under on Mizzou wins. What are we setting the number at?
We kind of briefly talked about this through text not too long ago. A lot.
Do we want to run through it?
A lot of national pundits are picking them, say that they're listed too high, that they're going to underperform. I've been seeing that a lot. Let's run through it.
Let's run through it. All right. So you got Murray State tomorrow at home.
Win.
Buffalo at home. Win. Boston College at home.
Win.
Vandy at home.
Win.
All right. So we're 4-0 at Texas A&M.
Loss.
Win.
I'll say that one's a win. I think they go into Texas A&M and win. Texas A&M, spoiler alert, might be on my fraud alert. For this week, they play Notre Dame. I believe it's the night game on Saturday night. I for one am stoked that Mizzou plays on Thursday, and I can just watch all the games on Saturday. That'd be fantastic.
Now, I do have a caveat. Okay, so Florida State plays Notre Dame later in the season. So A&M by default, if they were to beat them and then we beat them, which would then mean we were better than Notre Dame and Florida State.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay.
So 2-1, we'll say they win that game. So we're at 5. They play at UMass. They're 6.
Yep.
Yeah.
Homecoming at home against Auburn.
Win.
I'm thinking win. The only thing that I would say is that is reportedly going to be an 11 o'clock kick. That 11 o'clock kicks are never good against teams like that. So we'll say that's a win.
Incorrect. 11 o'clock kicks are the best kicks, and they should be honored at the University of Missouri.
It never plays out well for us, though. That's the problem. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 so far. Now we go to the tough part at Alabama.
Win.
Loss.
Oh, Sean. God damn you, Sean. Because
I'm not going to lie to you. I am very, very close. I've already brought up the topic of going to that game with Jess. It's like the week of, or technically weekend before her birthday. I know she doesn't want to go to Alabama for her birthday, but I've already brought it up. Like, hey, why don't we go to this game? It's a 9-hour drive. If they win that game, I would be so excited if I was there.
When you have such a figure of college football depart, that leaves just like a massive crater, and that's huge shoes to fill. I understand it's Alabama. I understand that they have the incredible recruiting classes that they do. It is really hard to replicate what Saban did there, and I think that they are going to regress this year. So I'm going to say a win for Mizzou.
Kenny, you're the tiebreak.
God. I have to say loss. I'm with Sean. Sean makes great, valid points. I don't want to sit here and be a homer and be like, they're going to go 12-0. But if there is a time to strike while the iron is hot, it's this year. If you're going to beat Alabama and hang your hat on it, you better do it this year, and you better stomp a fucking mud hole in Tuscaloosa.
I could not make that guess. I could not make that call any time in the past. If I'm ever gonna fucking do it, I'm gonna do it now. So I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. You know
All right,
what?
so
That's
no matter-
fair. Let's do it. Win.
No matter
Yeah,
which way we
baby.
slice it right now, we're at 7-1. So 7-1. Then we come back home the next week, or no, 2 weeks later, and we play OU.
For the sanctity of my Twitter thread and Power Mizzou's Tiger board, this better be a fucking win, and they better blow these guys out of the goddamn water.
I think it's a win, and they do.
I hate OU. Like, I hate Kansas. You're less than scum to me. But there is something special about the bootlickers from Oklahoma and Nebraska that just get in my crawl. You guys haven't been relevant in 30 years. Let's go.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that's a win. I think it's a big win.
I mean, the show's gonna say win. I think I am going L there, but I like it. I'm not gonna go against the show on that.
Last time Oklahoma was in Columbia, they lost.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
we're 8-1. We go into the other Columbia, the Governor Bowl, against South Carolina. That's a win.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's not no way that they don't beat the Gamecocks because Adam.
No, there is a way.
Speak on it. Bryce Williams is an awesome stadium. It's an awesome environment.
Yeah.
But at this point, if you're 7-1 and you're going to South Carolina, you're winning against the South Carolina Gamecocks. Coworker of mine from South Carolina texted me yesterday and said, "I'll give you $20 to change schedules with you." So,
So we're 8-1, 9-1 is South Carolina at Mississippi State. That one could be interesting. Not gonna lie, going into Starkville is always interesting, and it's a late in the season game. So I'm gonna say win no matter what, though.
Again, still kind of on that momentum. You gotta count it as a W.
I'm hesitant, but I don't know enough to refute.
You haven't played them yet in college football 25?
I haven't played them yet in college football. I barely took Tulane down to the wire the other day, so I'm
proud to say that App State won a national title the other day. I absolutely destroyed Kansas State on purpose too. So we're 10-1 coming back home against Arkansas, and I think that's a win.
That's a win.
That better be a win.
So we're 11-1.
11-1, and hoping that I am the third place team in the SEC.
Yeah, somehow, some way.
And I say that with all sincerity. I do not want to play in the championship game.
No.
Unless there is an opportunity Georgia loses 2 games, which
the only way I want to play is if I'm the number 1 team going into that.
So why do you say that, though? Do you say that because if they're not playing in that SEC championship game, they have an opportunity to potentially get voted into the playoff if they don't lose the championship game?
No,
is that what we're getting at?
I think
I don't want to be the team that loses and then still makes it into the playoff.
Got it.
No,
okay.
I don't want to be the team that loses because college football has a history of punishing those teams, a la Mizzou in 07 when KU got the BCS Bowl instead of us. And it's happened to countless other teams in the past. They go play in these conference championship games. They're right on the cusp. They lose that game. They're out.
Right.
I mean,
the only
look
thing, though, is
at Georgia this year. Georgia was the best team in college football. We should all be pissed that we were robbed of Michigan versus Georgia.
Oh, yeah. But I think that the benefit to Mizzou, no matter what, if they're 11-1, no matter what, they're making the playoffs. The only way that they wouldn't make the playoffs at that point, if they're 11-1 and go to the SEC championship, no matter what, they're going to be a playoff team, because that means that most likely you have at best Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and whoever loses the SEC championship game with 2 losses. So let's say it's Georgia is number 1 and Mizzou is number 2. You still have all the same teams. And honestly, at that point, they probably bump out Ole Miss would honestly be the team. You're not going to leave hanging Mizzou, who was 11-1, that loses to Georgia. That's not going to happen.
I know we're approaching 15 minutes, but I have to ask this. If we have to look forward a little bit, if Mizzou actually goes 11-1 and makes it into the playoffs. Is that Mizzou's greatest season of all time?
No,
They won a national championship in what, 1963?
1960.
Okay. Even though the scope and the landscape of college football has changed drastically since then, and they're playing arguably in the toughest conference, and they're week in, week out.
Okay. What I'm gonna say is that's all relative, right?
Yeah, of course.
When they played in the Big 8 and Kansas cheated. So if nobody knows the story, it's 1960. Kansas plays an ineligible player who scores 2 touchdowns. I think it's 2 touchdowns. It might have been 3. Mizzou loses the game and thus loses the national championship. I think they should claim it. It is what it is. But at that point, the Big 8 might have been the toughest conference in the land. The SEC wasn't what it is. I see what you're saying, right? Like the SEC now is a completely different ball game.
Right.
And by today's standards, yes, this would be the greatest Missouri season ever. More games, tougher schedule. Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's all relative, right? Like,
well, and I think it changes the program. I think that
absolutely
a team like Mizzou, or a program like Mizzou is a better way to put it. You have a season last year where you beat. It may not have been the best team when we played them, but you beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. That team is still relatively intact this year, and there's a lot of people that think they're going to win a national title this year. I don't have faith in Ryan Day that actually happens. We'll see. So you have that, and then you have another year back to back where they go 11-1 or 11-2. They lose in the SEC championship game, and they're hosting a playoff game. It drastically changes the projection of this program in the SEC. There's no more jokes about, Mizzou, has only won X amount of games. Screw everybody else. We have more 11-win seasons in the SEC than every other team in the SEC except for Georgia, Tennessee, Georgia and Alabama. That's it. Like, I understand that we're the new kid on the block still somehow, even though now we have OU in Texas, but it drastically changes the projection of the program. And yeah, it's probably the biggest season because of what it does next year and the year after.
Let me ask the inverse of that then, because I have to. What would be a failure? What's the win line where we're looking at this season as Mizzou underperformed? They did not do what they were supposed to do. Is it 9 wins?
I think it's 9. I think it's 9. I think if they lose A&M, Alabama, Oklahoma, then that's it. ESPN had a fantastic calculator for it on how it was projecting all of the odds. Really, the only way that Mizzou does not make the playoffs is if they lose 3 games, or if they lose to A&M, they lose to OU, and somehow make it into the SEC championship game and lose in the SEC championship game. So they go 10-3, basically. That's the only way that Mizzou doesn't make the playoffs, just because all the other schedules would then balance out at that point. 9 wins to me is the disappointment. If they don't win if they don't win 10 plus, it's a disappointment. They have to make the playoffs. They're a team that should make the playoffs.
Look, I will say this as the alumni who's got his diploma on the wall. I sat through a lot of bad football and watched a lot of Barry Odom football. I would be, I mean, even in the years leading up, Pinkel wasn't Pinkel. Like Pinkel became Pinkel my second year at Mizzou, right? Pinkel and Chase Daniel found each other and they became that combo. I would be really remiss if I didn't reflect and say, man, a 9-win season would still be damn good.
It's still going to be good. It's just going to be disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I would be disappointed, but I wouldn't be like, damn. Now you go out there and only win 8 games, I'm going to have some serious question marks. But I want to get back to something about program defining. I want to say this. Lane Kiffin walked and got fired on a plane so Eli Drinkowitz could run. because I think if the roles were inverse, you'd have the same scenario, right? You'd have an older Eli Drinkowitz, who was the guy who was a hot shot who fired off his mouth and, probably got fired in a non-conventional way. And a Lane Kiffin who, was able to get kind of brushed under the wing and be like, hey, man, this is all well and good. But you still got to coach football games and win games. Because I think those two are buddies. And yeah, man, we're at an interesting turn for the program. So,
All right, so let's go to the other one because we did this last year, and we're only doing this because we did this last year.
Colorado, let's do it.
Colorado win-loss record. Let's roll, boys. All right. Last year, I believe we nailed it, and what our total was 5 or was it 6?
I think it was 4.
and 8.
Yeah.
All right, let's go again. So tomorrow they start out against North Dakota State at
Loss.
home in Boulder.
Win.
I have them as loss.
Wow, guys.
Do not play a team from Dakota in
Don't
September.
play a team from Dakota in your first game.
I love that.
Matt Rule is a genius, by the way, if you don't know that story.
I will also say this. I don't know necessarily when I say it's a loss, I mean also it's probably a loss like image wise. Like if North Dakota State wins, or it's humiliating, it's crushing. But if they get within that point spread, it's still an embarrassment, and it makes Kenny a little bit of money.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's say, let's call that a win. It's North Dakota State. It's Colorado. Let's call it a win. They've got one. Week 2 at Nebraska. Loss.
At Nebraska.
At Nebraska. Week 2.
Loss.
Ooh, I think they should actually beat Nebraska. I'm not sold on Nebraska.
We'll say they're 1-1, 2 against 1. At Colorado State.
Win.
All right, 2-1. At home against Baylor.
Ooh, I don't know much about Baylor this year.
And it's the at-home part that messes with me. I'm gonna say win.
Right.
I will too. I'm gonna yield though that I don't know enough about Baylor right now.
I'm gonna say win, but let's call it close. So 3-1. They go to the University of Central Florida, Space University.
I think they lose that game.
I think they lose that game.
Yeah,
I think
I'll say loss.
Silently, Gus Malzahn is building a great program down there.
I agree. So 3-2. Home against Kansas State, blowout loss.
Kansas State whoops them.
Okay.
3-3.
Okay.
They go to the newest team in the Big 12, Arizona, number 21 in the nation, by the way, right now.
I don't think that'll last. I think they beat Arizona.
Loss.
I have them as a loss. I think Arizona's a decent pro. I think Arizona has a pretty good chance to win the Big 12 this year.
At home, you could convince me of a win if they're going to Arizona.
So 1, 2, 3,
3 and 4.
3 and 4. Home against the Bearcats, Cincinnati.
Win.
They should win that game.
Oh, I forgot Utah's in the pack or the Big 12 this year. Never mind. I think that's a win. So what? We're 4-4.
4 and 4.
Uh-huh.
On the road against Texas Tech.
Loss.
Ooh.
I think that's
win.
A win. Yeah, I think that's
okay. We'll chalk it as a win. Okay.
5-4 at home against Utah. Blowout loss.
Loss. Yeah.
Cam Rising's back for his 15th season.
That's going to be able to retire next year.
Playing in Utah in NCAA 25 is just a massacre. Just by the way, it's horrible.
They're just soaking the shit out of that stadium.
A lot of rocking back and forth.
So at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That puts them at 5-5.
Yep.
On the road against the Prairie Hawks.
As much as it pains me to say, I believe that's a loss.
Is that game in Arrowhead?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah, we'll say they win. Oh, you're saying Kansas wins?
I think Kansas wins.
I think Kansas wins. I think Colorado loses.
All right, I'll go along with that. Okay.
Especially if what's his name, the quarterback, is it Jalen Daniels?
Yeah, it's Jalen. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
If he's healthy at that point, still, he's probably. I don't want to say he's running for a Heisman because his team's not going to allow him to.
No way.
But I think he's putting up numbers capable of being.
That one could go either way for me, but I'll concede that.
So we're 5-6, and then
Yep.
they're at home against Oklahoma State on the 29th of November.
Not a
That's
chance.
That's
There
a
is your
definite loss.
champion of the Big 12.
I could see
That's a 35 point loss.
Yeah,
Utah,
5-7.
Okie State is my Big 12 championship.
So we have them projected to win one more than we projected them last year. I think this year is a significantly easier schedule than they had last year.
And they're worse. Well, I don't want to say they're worse. I don't think they got better. Let's put it that way.
I think they lost a lot of transfers out, and I think the players that they got in are not going to help them. I think one extra win for our projection makes sense to me based on that schedule.
I think the problem is Deion's not actually trying to build a program. He is trying to build a pro team, and he might be better for the Dallas Cowboys come next year because he doesn't build a program.
I think he was trying to build a program until they got smacked in the mouth last year, and he realized it's significantly harder than what he was doing, and that he's not built to do that. I think it humbled him, but he'll never admit it. So now he's just going through the motions until he can move on.
Yeah, and I think that, Kenny, you're right about building a NFL team or building an NFL caliber team or however you want to put it. He hired Warren Sapp as a defensive line coach. He has, I believe, Ed Reed as a defensive backs coach. Those guys know nothing about coaching kids. Like, put them in the pros.
No. That's not even a factor to me. They don't know anything about recruiting. Right?
That's the other part. Yeah, they don't. The only reason
still have to recruit.
The only reason it's working is because it's Deion Sanders. That's it. That truly is
just on name alone.
That's it. Yeah, and then that's why they've lost a bunch of players is because of Deion Sanders, and I truly believe he's gone. I don't think there's much in the way for that to happen, other than him somehow going out and having a massive year at Colorado. Other than that, I think he's gone.
The only thing that I could think could potentially get in the way of your conspiracy theory of Deion to the Dallas Cowboys is Deion to Florida State.
I don't think it happens. He'll get more money from Jerry.
He'll get all of the money from Jerry.
I agree.
Yeah. Sure, but Florida State is still home, right? Like,
so is Dallas.
Yeah.
But so was Atlanta, and Florida State is where you went to college. I mean, that for somebody like him, it's probably big. I mean, for somebody like me, it's big. If I was in athletics and Mizzou offered me a job, I don't know how fast I would say yes. So,
right, I agree.
All right. I think that's a good place to call. Let's get out of here. Our NFL talk definitely turned into a little college football, but honestly, I don't think we talk college football enough. So I appreciated that. So. Final thoughts, guys, before we get out of here. Anything?
Go Tigers.
2024 FedEx Cup champion, Xander Schauffele.
Sweet. All right. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Keep an eye out on the socials. I shout them out every single week, but it's Pod Ride the Pine, Twitter. What is all of our stuff? Twitter, X, or whatever you want to call it. Pod Ride the Pine on everything. It's not just Twitter. Check out the Substack, please. It's in the description if you want to see the articles. Kenny's got one coming up. Adam has one. I have a couple. We're pushing it because it's something that we're really excited to do. So, all right, everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next week on Thursday, Wednesday. We'll see. Bye.
Someday next week.